Conker's Bad Fur Day. This incredibly bizarre and wacky game was released for the Nintendo 64 in the year 2001 and caught many people by surprise with its hilarious but strange and quite vulgar dialogue mixed in with its Banjo Kazooie-esque gameplay and cute, fun visuals. The story starts with Conker, our protagonist, getting drunk at a bar and forgetting how to get home. This simple event leads to a captivating yet silly game filled with unforgettable characters. Who could forget such classic characters as a cursing, alcoholic squirrel, or an angry British scarecrow, or best of all, the notorious Great Mighty Pooh?
I am the Great Mighty Pooh, and I'm going to throw my shit at you.
This game also has an incredibly catchy soundtrack and an actual decent story, if at times sad even. If you love classic N64 platformers or raunchy humor, this game's for you, baby.
Well, this game was very important to my upbringing as a gamer. The first console I ever played when I was little was my Nintendo 64. Even before I ever touched a NES, I was playing this game. Those of you that saw our top 10 N64 games must have seen this coming, as we ranked it pretty high. All of us seriously adore this game. It has a really nice charm to it that really brought me into gaming. Basically, this is a game created by Rare that is similar to Banjo Kazooie in concept, in the way that it's a 3D collectathon with similar controls. What is different about this game is the amount of moves and power-ups given. Well, that's the positive difference anyway. This game has an amazing soundtrack thanks to the legendary Grant Kirkhope, and it really took Donkey Kong to a different place than it had ever previously been. All of these amazing things, yet, despite my absolute adoration for this game, looking back, I can kinda see why people complain. In DK64, you have 5 different Kongs to play as, each with their respective collectibles in each world. In order to collect these, you had to be playing the corresponding Kong, and while this is something reasonable enough with puzzles using unique powers, it does get a little bit ridiculous with the standard banana pickup. Imagine if you couldn't pick up the coins in Super Mario games unless you were playing with Luigi or something. In the end, I still loved this game to pieces. The story and the multiplayer both gave me endless hours of entertainment. For those who wrote this game off early due to these issues they have with the collection process, I strongly urge you to go back and try it once again. There's just something about this game that's so fun, I just can't quite describe. I just really love it.
Honestly, Halo 2 is probably the second greatest multiplayer shooter of all time, right after GoldenEye. This game was my first experience at online play, and now we have the ability to play against 16 people at a time. I probably lost an entire summer to this game back in middle school. In this installment, they took the base that they had built in the first game and improved upon it with new weapons, a recharging energy shield instead of health pickups, and massive campaign levels that had tons of Easter eggs to find. It was no wonder that it was the best-selling game on the original Xbox, with over 710 million hours collectively spent on Xbox Live. Just talking about it makes me wish I could fire it up again and play with my old buddies.
I never actually finished the story mode of Portal 2, but it's by far one of my favorite puzzle games. I like the Portal series a lot because it is so unique. Valve took a brand new idea and turned it into an amazing game. But who am I kidding? They're Valve, they can do anything. I like how Portal offers a challenge, but not too difficult to the point where I just want to rage quit. Overall, Portal 2 is a very entertaining game. If you haven't played it yet, I highly recommend you do.
Hi, this is Connor BS here to talk about Final Fantasy IV. Released in 1991, we set off on a quest of redemption for our once anti-hero, Dark Knight Cecil. This game was, as many Final Fantasy games, focused on a plot in which you had to save the world. But this one was character-driven. Each character had their own motivations for aligning themselves with you, and they left quickly when your goals did not line up. Sure, Cecil was going about trying to stop Golbez from destroying the world, but he did it not just to be a hero, but because of the guilt he felt for the past deeds in order to redeem himself. This game also introduced the battle timer. Instead of static turn-based combat, we had a sense of urgency in our attacks. Battles became important to optimize the player's choices in combat, and force you to think in advance on what you want to do in the hopes of sneaking in a heal or an extra attack. Players would also feel more submerged within the plot as this game boasted save points within dungeons and less grinding. Less grinding also lends itself to the story a bit more, as the characters would then seem to be more focused on that big boss just sitting there in his chamber and less about running around in circles and killing everything that looks at them funny. This makes Final Fantasy IV a little more unique from all of its competition, as many games within this genre have you, in order to progress, wipe out every living thing within the local forest to level up. Turning these RPGs into a strange story not about a hero versus evil, but an environmental terrorist who must defeat evil so that he can protect the world and claim his throne of terror over the woodland creatures. Within this game lies many memorable moments. The phrase, "You spoony bod," Cecil's change into his paladin form, and the fight with yourself as the Dark Knight, in which you realize the Dark Knight will end up destroying itself if you let it. Its love is apparent by the amount of remakes and ports we see. It was re-released on the PlayStation within Final Fantasy Chronicles, Wonder Swan Color, that was a thing, Game Boy Advance, Nintendo DS, PSP, Steam, and your smartphone. Thus making Final Fantasy IV truly an RPG to remember.
The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Now it's really hard to leave this N64 classic off of, well, any top games list really. Ocarina of Time is one of those games that everyone knows, whether they be a Sony fanboy, or Xbox fanboy, or even the average gamer. They all know this game. In this game you play as the hero Link. You are asked by the Great Deku Tree to save the land of Hyrule from the evil clutches of Ganondorf. I should mention I never got around to beating this game until a year ago. As a kid I found this game pretty difficult for me without walkthroughs, because I was more of a Pokemon fan than a Zelda fan back then. But I'm glad I got around to beating this game. It's honestly a lot of fun, and I can see why this is considered the best in the series. The amount of side quests in this game is astonishing, and they're mostly all really fun. Getting bottles, heart pieces, bigger wallets, extra bombs, all these little secrets spread around Hyrule to make the sense of adventure very present in this game. Hell, the first thing you do when you leave Kokiri Forest is see the wide open area of Hyrule Field, where you had many options to choose from before getting back into the storyline. The aging mechanic was pretty neat in this game because there were things that had to be done as adult Link and things that had to be done as Kid Link, making you switch from both adult and kid form to complete different side missions and the main storyline. I'd have to say the best thing about this game were its dungeons. Every dungeon I went through in this game I would gladly go back to it. Well, with maybe the exception of the Water Temple. I'd let James do that one 100 times before I even try to complete it once. It's no wonder why so many people enjoy this game, with a great adventure to be had alongside some fantastic music. This game was so popular it got a remake for the 3DS, so for the gamers without a Nintendo 64, you can try it out on the handheld console.
Super Mario Galaxy. As a kid, I was fascinated with space. In fact, I still am today. But I was always wishing for a Mario game that took place in space. How cool would that be? Mario fighting Bowser and rescuing Peach in space? Well, my dream got realized in 2007 with Super Mario Galaxy. In this game, you still control Mario like you would in any other 3D Mario adventure, but now you're traversing unique and wonderful galaxies across the universe. With some great orchestral music and beautiful visuals, This game feels just like space does. Vast. There's a lot of cool new features and power-ups as well, such as anti-gravity, and transforming into things like Bee Mario, Bee? Or Boo Mario. It can also be extremely challenging too, if you want to collect every single Power Star in the game. Trust me, you'll be playing for a while. All in all, Super Mario Galaxy is a fantastic iteration of the Mario series, and will be loved by many for years to come.
Splatoon. Now, I'm not really a fan of shooters unless I'm trolling on Call of Duty with Jake, but Splatoon was one of those games that caught my eye as soon as the trailer was released. Splatoon is a third-person shooter with the main objective of painting the map with your team's color of ink. At the end of the game, whichever team had more ink on the map would win. It also appealed to the more competitive players by having ranked battles, which would raise your player's level faster, get your ranking up, and get you a lot more gold so you could spend it at the shop. On the topic of shopping, one thing that Splatoon did very well was character customization and weapon customization. You could deck out your Inkling with a fishing hat all the way to a gas mask, make yourself look like a casual person with jeans and a hoodie, or you could go the different route and make yourself look like a samurai warrior. The guns in this game were fantastic. There were certainly guns that were far superior to others, but it all depended on the game mode. Some game modes made guns ridiculously good, but in other game modes you would need to swap out for a different approach. The developers also thought it would be a good idea to do on-the-go updates for the game, including new weapons, new stages, and new game modes released every so often. Not as DLC, but as free content, just to keep the game fresh and never boring, which I thought was weird at first, but I really ended up enjoying it afterwards. Now on to some of the bad things about this game. This game is insanely team heavy, and the one thing that bugs me is that there's no way of communicating with your teammates online. Yes, I'm talking about microphones, not the little booyahs or come-ons. Not being able to talk to your teammates can really put you in a bad position, so I recommend playing with friends while communicating through Skype or Discord. Another annoying thing is that you can't mid-game switch to different loadouts for your weapons, which can be brutal, but it probably has to do with me being so used to Call of Duty. Despite Splatoon's weak points, this game has won the Multiplayer Game of the Year and the Best Shooter Game of the Year at the 2015 Game Awards.
Widely regarded as the most popular entry into the series, Symphony of the Night takes the old Castlevania formula and spices it up with RPG elements. This game was huge! Tons of weapons, bosses, and multiple endings promised a lot of replayability. Did I mention that the soundtrack is just phenomenal? With the addition of experience points and new, more powerful weapons, it opened the Castlevania series up to a wider audience, allowing for less hardcore gamers to enjoy the atmosphere without it being too brutal to master. Symphony of the Night has provided me with hundreds of hours of pleasure through the years, so I recommend that you check it out.
Throw all of the 2D Mario games together, let you build whatever you want from any of those games, and make it into a game that people play? Boom, you got yourself Super Mario Maker. This game was seriously a dream come true. I've had a lot of fun with this game making my insanely difficult maps for people to play through, which I'm currently still trying to upload. If you get bored of making levels, you can do the 10 Mario challenge or even the 100 Mario challenge. Whatever challenge you choose, you have that many lives to complete other people's stages in a row without losing all of your lives. I've never experienced such an open game like Mario Maker, letting you make just about anything. Thwomps with wings? You got it. Gigantic baby Bowser? Hey man, do whatever you want. Not a fan of the newer style of 2D Marios? That's totally fine because you can make your levels have the graphics from the original Mario Bros, Super Mario World, Mario Bros 3, and even the new Super Mario Bros. Another thing I like about this game is that it's practically for any age group. My dad doesn't really enjoy the new games that are coming out, but he enjoys that the classics are still around, and he enjoys to even make levels in Mario Maker, although he's not very good at beating the levels. The only complaint I have about this game is I wish there were more music options for the game, because I really enjoyed all the soundtracks from each and every Mario 2D game. Mario Maker is a ton of fun for the whole family to play, and is able to bring out the inner level designer of everyone. Chrono Trigger. Best RPG of all time? Well, that's what a lot of people believe, and to be honest, I don't blame them a single bit. When I first picked up this game, it was around the time I started playing a lot of RPGs, and this one brought a lot of things to the table. The characters in the game were unique in their own way. Did you want to use a well-mannered frog on your team? Or did you want the misunderstood Magus on your team? And for those asking, yes, you do want the fucking badass Magus on your team. Do that shit. In this game, you are to travel through time to find a way to stop the evil Lavos from destroying the world. You'll be in the medieval times, to the dinosaur age, to even the future. And at pretty much any point in the game, you could face Lavos, making the outcome of your ending different. Speaking of endings, there are up to 12 different endings that you can encounter in this game. This also doesn't include the DS version, which added on more endings. This honestly didn't surprise me with how much time you could put into this game. The one thing I did really enjoy about this game was its timing mechanic, and also the combo attacks you could do. At first I wasn't sure what to think of the timing system, having to wait for others until you could finally attack, but it made for some good strategy. Do you wait for your other partner to be able to do a powerful combo attack, but you'll also receive another attack from the enemy? Or do you attack quickly without the help, and see if you can take it down single-handedly? I mean, I was always the guy who waited to do combo attacks because they look super cool. If you haven't played this game, I would say go out and play it right now, but you should probably prepare yourself, as for this game will take you a long time to complete, especially for beginners.
Released in 1998, published and developed by Konami for the PlayStation, this is regarded by many to be an important game that popularized the stealth genre of games. On the flip side, it may be partially responsible for some developers seemingly compelled to put in a stealth level out of nowhere. But let's not crucify Metal Gear for the mistakes of some other developers. This game hosted a large collection of poorly paid guards. They would walk on their patrol route with a narrow field of vision, and if they did spot you, they would forget about your presence on the base 1 minute later. I imagine this was an attempt for guards to avoid the paperwork and telling their superiors that they failed in capturing an intruder. That said, by creating this kind of environment, it made you feel like an excellent game of cat and mouse was afoot. The guards, very quick to open fire, would follow your footprints in the snow and swarm your position. You would more likely hear someone yelling, "Snake!" as you were to escape the alerted guards. Many people who played this game will no doubt remember how this game forced players to take real actions outside the game in order to complete it. Want to talk to Meryl? Colonel Campbell tells you to check out the back of the case for her frequency. Want to defeat Praying Mantis? Well, after he's done messing around with your television, you're going to have to switch to playing on the Player 2 port on your PlayStation, as a way of shielding yourself from him reading your mind. These, though, are merely memorable gimmicks in comparison with the story that Metal Gear Solid offered. The plot had you going about infiltrating and ultimately destroying a Metal Gear. Think Gundam with rail-firing nukes. But that's not the driving force behind the character's actions. Naomi seeking for her parents through genetics, Otacon feeling that he failed to escape his genes, and Snake learning of his genetic origins also makes these war machines more of just a backdrop. The game turns into not a fight to destroy the weapon of mass destruction, but a conversation against war itself, fate, and rebelling against one's own predetermined fate. This game, once you get over the jarring 1998 graphics and slightly clunky controls, still holds up well as a fun stealth espionage game. Truly a game that deserves its spot on the top 100.
Banjo Kazooie was my favorite childhood game and will forever be held dear to my heart. BK was revolutionary. The lighthearted soundtrack, smooth gameplay, and whimsical characters gave this game an amount of charm unparalleled on the Nintendo 64. When compared side to side with other platformers from this era, it looks light years ahead. From the sheer bliss of Mumbo's Mountain to the terrors of Clanker's Cavern, this game had me skipping homework to hang out with the Bear and Bird combo. The highlight of this game has to be the music by Grant Kirkhope. I literally hum these tunes at work 18 years later. Banjo Kazooie is the definition of a classic.
Xenoblade Chronicles is an amazing JRPG by Monolith Soft that's beauty is only matched by its phenomenal plot and gameplay. Originally released on the Nintendo Wii, it quickly became quite hard to get your hands on, with one of the most creative combat systems I've ever seen, and possibly the prettiest settings I've ever seen, period. This game still manages, despite having all that, to have an unbelievable soundtrack. I'm sure most gamers are quite familiar with Gower Plains by now. I've said it earlier in this top 100, and I'll say it again. I'm a sucker for interesting plots. And this game, much like Yakuza 4 way back near the beginning, has an incredibly interesting plot. What it has that Yakuza doesn't is a solid story that actually makes sense and is believable within the confines of its own world. Speaking of the world, it is huge here. The amount of quests are copious, and the voice acting is phenomenal. Actually, talking about the voice acting for a second, I've heard people complain about the casting. Every character in this game has an English accent, and I guess us Western gamers aren't quite used to that. Personally, I wouldn't have the game any other way. Awesome battles, great one-liners, memorable characters, amazing musical score, original gameplay. There isn't much to complain about here. Eventually, this game was re-released for the Nintendo new 3DS, which is by far easier to get your hands on, so I highly recommend people give it a look and really get into the story, because it is just something special.
Story. A good story is one of the key components games need to have nowadays to really entice a player into playing the game. One game comes to mind that is very dear to my heart that is possibly one of the best stories I've ever experienced in a long time, and that is Undertale. Undertale is one of those games that got hyped up a lot after its release, and it deserves to be. The gameplay of Undertale was a very easy concept but could scale in difficulty fast, especially in a genocide run. You have the red heart that is just simply dodging attacks, a green heart in which you had to block arrows from hitting you from all directions with some help from a spear, a yellow heart that basically turns the game into a shooter, a blue heart that makes it so you must jump over obstacles, and a purple heart which, well, has a different style within itself. The story of Undertale was extremely immersive. You were told the whole game to be a good person, not to kill anything, knowing full well it rewarded you with nothing, but you did it anyways. The game made you feel like every monster you ran into had their own lives and were each unique and special in their own ways. With its plot twists, funny moments, heartbreaks, and heartaches, Undertale really made me appreciate games as a whole. Each decision you made in the game affected the outcome of how monsters in the game thought about you, and ultimately how it affected your endgame. On the topic of decision making, there are 3 ways to play the game. Pacifist, where you don't kill anything. Neutral, where you kill some monsters and save some monsters. And genocide, where you absolutely murder everything. I remember my first time I faced Asgore. I flipped out so much because he destroys your mercy bar. In a pacifist run where you were not to kill anything, you had to finally fight, and you would even have players refuse to fight him no matter what, until finally, you had to just accept that some battles were meant to be fought. Undertale was one of those games that is an absolute gem that doesn't really come around too often. With its amazing music from the dummy theme to Megalovania, the game really knew how to pull out every single emotion from the player. Hell, it even makes you feel bad for trying to replay it. I can't really find any problems with this game rather than its fairly simple gameplay. Yes, I know some of the fights in this game are extremely hard, but the mechanics don't change. With all that being said, Undertale is definitely one of my favorite games out there. Here's to further development, Toby Fox. I'm really looking forward to hard mode. Shovel Knight. Oh man, Shovel Knight, you beautiful game, you. I freaking love this game. The moment I downloaded this game onto my Wii U, I knew that I was going to have a good time. One thing that I really enjoyed about this game was its mechanics. You had the shovel that you could use as a pogo stick, much like in DuckTales, to hop on enemies and terrain. You can use it to dig up treasure and attack enemies, and you can also deflect enemy projectiles back at them by using your shovel as well. You also had different armors that affected the way you played, using less magic, making your shovel have a charge attack that did a ton of damage, or just armor that looks cool and does absolutely nothing. And then there are your items that take up magic to use. You get these weapons from finding them in chests. Well, actually, Chester gets to the chest first and sells you the item that was contained in the chest. The music in this game was phenomenal as well. Each level had their each unique theme and boss battle theme. The music really reminded me of the music from the Mega Man series, which is by far my favorite style of music. Or maybe it was the atmosphere combined with the music that just felt right. Hell, even the storyline was pretty decent for a 2D platformer. It really pushed me to complete the game the minute I picked it up. With the release of Plague Knight's story out now, for free, just brings me joy to know that this series will not be dying anytime soon. I seriously can't wait for Shovel Knight 2. Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. This game is a masterpiece when it comes to the RPG genre. You play as Paper Mario on your quest to collect all of the crystal stars to save everyone from the evil curses of what's inside the 1,000-year door. Not only do you play as Mario, but you have some really cool companions that work alongside, such as Miss Mouse, a baby Yoshi with some attitude, and many more. Each chapter in the game had its own theme, with some of them being very fun to do, like how you rise the rankings in Glitzville, but some of them could have a much darker tone to it, such as the creepy steeple with the infamous Dupless. The puzzles in this game were awesome, which is what I loved in the Paper Mario series. It blended RPG elements alongside some easy and pretty challenging puzzles. But whenever I play this game, 3 things really draw me in, which is the story, gameplay, and music. In this game, you played as Mario, but you also get a chance to play as Bowser and Peach to see their sides of the storyline while everything is going on in the present game. You have Peach and Mario emailing each other throughout the game while she is being held hostage. Then you had Bowser that is trying to get the crystal stars before you, but always coming up short, until the very end of the game where everything ties together. Bowser is there to foil your plans, and when you defeat him in battle, the evil Shadow Queen possesses Princess Peach, making an extremely difficult boss to beat. The gameplay from the Mario series is very similar to the Mario and Luigi series, with timing your jumps to do more damage, or trying to get a perfect landing for stylish points so you obtain more star power to use your crystal stars. The crystal stars that you collect throughout the game could also be used in combat, which were basically your heavy attacks, or they give you buffs, or paralyze your opponent, etc. You could also use FP to use different styles of attacks, making it so you strategically use normal attacks and attacks that use FP throughout the battle. You could also attach your character with badges to give them certain attacks, cool outfits, or things like use less FP, do more damage when you're at low health, and other neat things. And finally, the music in this game is phenomenal. With each chapter having its own theme, like I said, the music was right there letting you know what you were getting yourself into. Whether it be an uplifting beat, a beat that makes you want to fist pump, or even a creepy song that freaks you out, this soundtrack rocks. I love Paper Mario, but with the games that came out recently, it looks like this will be the last good Paper Mario game in the series.
The Legend of Zelda, The Windwaker. Knowing us, you must have known this was coming in the top 10. This is my and Jeremy's favorite game of all time. probably seems confusing considering its rank is number 3, but I'll get into that in a little bit. The Legend of Zelda, certainly not the first from the series to make its way onto the list. Above all, we believe the Windwaker is the best from an all-star legendary series. This game means very much to me, and for proof, you can go watch our Let's Play. I almost cry at the end. That's usually Jeremy's job. With gameplay that is fun and simple at the same time, a story I feel is the most interesting of the series, and a world that really makes you feel free, The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker is truly something special. Oh, and it also has one of my favorite Zelda soundtracks too. Love is just an understatement for how I feel about this game. From beginning to end, which, trust me, I've seen many times, I love almost every minute of it. Almost. The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker is kind of an incomplete game. During the development, there was actually supposed to be a couple more dungeons. Nintendo, in the end, decided to scrap these dungeons for now and put them in a future installment. What we were left with instead was one of the most tedious sections in gaming history, where the player must scour a map, which usually means completing the map, in order to find all of the Triforce pieces. This takes forever, and it just takes away from what is otherwise almost a perfect game. Eventually, Nintendo even apologized for this section, it was so bad. The issue is slightly fixed in the HD re-release for the Wii U, due to the inclusion of the Swift Sail, making the sailing portion of the game way faster. At the end of the day, there's no game in the world that I feel more emotionally attached to than this one. Hey, there's a damn good reason it's the first game we ever Let's Played on this channel, which admittedly made me more emotionally attached than I already was. Please, if you haven't, go play this game. As a gamer, you owe it to yourself. Silent Hill 2. Yeah. So few games on this list am I able to point at and say with unanimous certainty of how much it deserves to be where it is. Silent Hill 2 was revolutionary to the survival horror genre, with some of the slickest and most intriguing symbolism and themes I've ever seen in anything. Silent Hill 2 is godlike, simply put. The direction of this game is unreal. The voice acting is actually some of my favorite from any game ever. At first glance, people would actually think the voice acting is poor, but in reality, there's a reason each character speaks the way they do, meaning even their voices have deep symbolism, giving insight into the characters. The controls are even designed to feel kind of clunky, just to give a physical representation and feeling of your protagonist's combat abilities. It's rare I can play a game and figure out so much just from something as subtle as the placement of a flashlight. So much about a character. The best way to describe the design of this game is pure genius. Giving birth to one of the most iconic characters in gaming, Pyramid Head, Silent Hill 2 doesn't disappoint in the threat department. Playing this game does something to you. It messes with your mind. The designers made it this way. Even the positioning of certain pieces of the world slightly askew because it messes with the human subconscious. Once you're done with it, you will see things differently for a while. Not in some deep metaphorical sense, like literally it seems to alter how you feel and think about things just by blasting your mind with strong imagery and sound design. So here's the hard part, finding a negative. What it is that made this game number 2 and not number 1. I can only think of its controls. While a legitimate design choice, there's no denying the feel between this game and the game at number 1, which we actually feel has some of the greatest, if not the greatest controls of all time. I strongly urge anybody looking for a good game, maybe around Halloween, to go out and pick up a PS2 and Silent Hill 2. I stress, a PS2 and Silent Hill 2. Not the HD remake of Silent Hill 2 that actually ruins most of what the original did so right, changing graphics, soundtrack, and the voice actors themselves. Take my advice, folks. Play the original. here we are. We have finally arrived, good hunter. Bloodborne. The game we feel is the best game crafted by humankind. Bloodborne just gets everything right. The voice acting, the plot, the gameplay, the music, the visual design, the sound design, and of course, the difficulty. Bloodborne, being the spiritual successor to the Souls series, not foreign to this list, nailed everything. I mentioned in the previous game that I think this game possibly has the best controls ever. I've never felt so satisfied to just do things in any game. From the combat system, to the leveling, to the grinding, to the weapon transformations, this game feels just... well, any gamer knows that when you get something in gaming perfect, that perfect isn't really the best word to describe it. It's kind of indescribable. You just have to feel it. You have to. I've said it multiple times, and I guess I'll say it once more. I'm a sucker for interesting plot. This goes for deep lore as well. Everything about this game is brilliantly written, or in some cases, not even written. I could go on and on about this stuff, but I want to focus on level design right now. Look, I truly feel, in as much of a third-party view as I possibly can on this, that this game has the most genius level design I've ever seen in any game. The layout of the world is just so masterfully crafted, finding shortcuts can literally be mind-boggling. When you're going through an extremely tough area nearing the end of the game, nothing amazes you more to open a door or a gate only to find that you're in the first room or area of the game. The art choices fit into this as well. I've never seen a game so encapsulate its own tone and themes with its visual design like Bloodborne does it. Silent Hill 2 maybe, but with the improved graphics this game has being 2 console generations later, I think it was more realized here. If you've ever played one of the Souls games, you know how good it feels to defeat a tough boss or enemy, and in Bloodborne, it was 10 times better. The tactics usable were doubled since each weapon really doubles as 2. You can transform a sword into a great hammer, or a huge claw belonging to a god into a scythe. Whilst creating this list, Jeremy and I expected to have many disagreements about what should be where. While there was a few, this is one game we both completely agreed on. Like we stated at the start of this video, we made this list using not just our own games, but the beloved games from the amazing people who collabed on this video with us. It speaks volumes to this series that despite none of us putting more than one of a game from each series into our lists, all of the Souls games were brought up. In some cases, more than once. Everybody who plays this franchise and pushes past the initial slaughter laid on you by the enemies knows that it's special. All of these reasons factored in to creating what we believe is the most perfect game ever created.
Hey guys, just wanted to say thank you so much for watching this video, and I am extremely sorry for delaying this video time and time again. Remember to check out all the YouTube and Twitch users that helped us make this video. Lastly, I wanted to announce that LPs will be frequently uploaded now that this big project is out of the way. Again, I hope you enjoyed, and we will see you in a future video. Peace out.